haven't not been on it long enough to feel, you know.
Same here.
Ask me in 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, same
Just,
here.
Not
Yeah.
really.
Just trying to-
I mean, yes, but not at this point.
Yeah, same here.
But it's always fun to be the king or the queen. But
if
I'll put in
nominated,
more time.
I will accept nomination.
Okay,
good. Well, you should. Yeah.
Just
I
to let you know.
nominate you.
Okay,
Yes,
well,
President.
it's kind of
President King.
Yeah.
if you want to do so when it counts. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it. Yeah. I'm still a little finding my way.
Absolutely. Yeah, asking the good questions.
Today is the 18th. Yeah.
Yeah, ask great questions. That's whoever.
Oh, good. At least I'm doing something right. Hopefully.
No, I love all your questions.
Yeah.
Hello there.
You're right over here, Lana.
You can come this way, go around that way.
Oh, there's a chair in the way over there. Hopefully.
You're like a rooster in the hen house.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Like, okay, which way?
Where's the men here?
Are they green?
Yeah.
Where's Bob?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Kind of lack of. It's okay.
Yeah.
X chromosomes aren't bad. I have one.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Jolinda's not coming. Bob said yes. He's the one that caught the minutes.
Wow.
Approve of the minutes. Okay.
What was that issue?
We were approving minutes that were already.
How are you?
There he is. Speak of the
Very
devil.
good, thank you.
Last time we were here.
Nice to see you.
You too.
I remember now. Yeah.
There's another rooster.
Little rooster.
Here
Yeah.
he comes.
Oh, good.
Yes, I do.
know
I do. You do see it.
He handled the meeting last
Yeah.
time. I understand. I couldn't make it. So.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah.
You were missed.
Mr. Chairman, can I just give you like a 30-second tutorial?
Yes, please. Yep. If I could have the board members' attention.
Each one of you have a mic in front of you. Is the little green light lit up on the base?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If you want, what I usually do is I usually turn my mic off unless I want to say something, but you can keep it hot the entire
How do you
night.
turn it off?
Just push.
There's a little right towards the front of the
I
base
see it. I see
where
it.
there's just push on that
Just
and it
as
should go
long as
off.
you don't forget
It's
to
a
turn
toggle
it back
switch.
on.
With a,
Yeah, but I have control. I am the gatekeeper.
So just make sure if you want to speak, you turn it back on.
Right.
Right.
I can override.
Also, Mr. Chairman, I know you haven't used this in the past, but if you're interested and the council uses it, there's a timer right in front of you, and up by your name. Okay. If you're interested, you can institute the use of that, and that'll give people 3 minutes to speak. And what it will do is, I think it's at 2 minutes it goes yellow, and then at 2.5, or no, at 3 it goes red. And nothing happens. It doesn't eject the speaker off the podium or anything. But you can, what the mayor does typically is he'll remind the speaker, hey, you're at your 3-minute limit. Kind of wrap it up, or something like that. So
That wouldn't necessarily apply to the applicant.
correct. And the P&Z board, they don't typically use that tool, but it's strictly after the board's prerogative if you want. Yeah.
So how do you activate it?
I think Patsy.
Well, okay. Now that he opened up that kettle of worms, I haven't used it before because I'm like,
Okay, so we're not up on that.
so we're not up on that.
Start counting down.
Cause yeah, I mean we could try setting it and starting it, but I say we skip that for this meeting.
If the board is interested, we can get.
I'll get training.
We'll get trained before the meeting. No worries. Yeah. Let's see what else.
Bathrooms, where they're
Bathrooms.
located? Did anybody
Everybody see where they
out as you're going?
when you walk in the front door, right to your left. Men's and women's restrooms right there.
On the emergency exits, there's 3 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We are live streaming. Since we moved into this building, all of our board meetings are being live streamed. So you guys are on live and on camera tonight. So
Be aware of your facial expressions. I got to watch the whole meeting the last time, and I was like, oh man, I gotta be careful there.
that's really
Food and drinks. food and drinks, only water.
Yeah, we're trying to enforce. I know that's kind of tough to, but that's what we'd like is kind of just in case there's a spill or something.
I think that's it.
My New Year's resolution.
I know.
Enjoy sprinting?
Admit that I'm well more than 40.
Linda sent us an email late this afternoon indicating she wouldn't be able to be.
I'm sorry, she will not make it. Let me go.
Oh yeah, and cell phones, please.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
That or we're at T-minus 52 minutes.
But we still have corn.
Oh yeah, we're good.
Are you ready? You ready, Dave?
Yes, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Good evening. Call in the order of the City of Cape Canaveral's Community Appearance Board meeting of April 18th, 2018. Patsy, can you please call the roll?
Bob Neenstedt,
Present.
Sandy Lanham,
Present.
Lena Whitehead,
Present.
Gail Sweet,
Present.
Randy Wasserman.
Present. Thanks, Patsy. So next we just need to swear in anyone who plans to speak this evening on behalf of an application or otherwise. If you plan to do so, please rise now if you're able to and raise your right hand.
Good evening, thank you.
Can I interrupt just for a second?
Sure can.
Anybody in the audience planning on speaking? So if you think you may, you might want to stand and be part of this.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony that you'll give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Jen. Okay, so I welcome everyone here to the new City Hall. Please, do bear with us if we look a little out of order than we normally are. Again, this is our first meeting here. It's a wonderful facility. Thanks for being part of this first meeting for us here. We've got the approval of the meeting minutes from the November 14th, 2017 meeting. I want to thank the board members who were able to be present for that meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there.
Do you mean the February? Wasn't it amended?
February, we sent out an amended.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have the old? It was February, right?
Yeah, February 7th.
Okay, February 7th. Thank you for the
Right.
correction. My package still notes November 14th. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Bob, for catching that too.
Thanks. There were no other changes, right? Okay.
No, just the date, right minutes.
Right. Thank you. Okay, were the members present at that meeting able to review the minutes?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from the February meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 7th. It's been seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion's passed. Those minutes are approved. So I'm going to, if no one objects, I'm going to go ahead and take up the new business in a little bit reverse. Instead of addressing our board elections, our annual board elections, I'd like to move on to the Golf and Gator Amusement Center. Does anyone object to having the Golf and Gator Amusement Center next on the agenda? Okay, so we'll go ahead and do the elections after the Golf and Gator Amusement Center application. So yeah, so that brings us to the Golf and Gator Amusement Center at 6355 North Atlantic Avenue. And is there anyone here who'd like to speak on behalf of that? Well, first, I'm sorry, Dave, would you like to give some staff comments?
Sure, that'd be great.
Regarding that application?
Yeah, that'd be great. As the board is aware, and really for purposes of the folks here in the audience this evening, I'll try to give some really good information so we can all kind of understand what's going on and hopefully make some good decisions here this evening. Again, this is a level 1 application, and a level 1 application is a code requirement for all new development or redevelopment or expansion. Significant expansions, not like a room addition or putting new windows on your house. But if there's going to be a significant commercial expansion, the code says we need to go through a level 1 process. This is what we're doing here this evening. And as Mr. Chairman said, this is the subject property is the Golf and Gator Amusement Center, which is located at 6355 North Atlantic Avenue. The overall property is a little over 2 acres. And I'm going to flip through some pictures here, and so we can all kind of see what's going on. This is the site identified in red, and we're looking from south to north, and there's North Atlantic just to our right of the parcel, which is identified in red. I'll go through a few slides and then I'll go back to my written report and read some stuff from that. Again, this is kind of a little bit more of a zoom shot onto the piece of property. Again, the property is shown in red. The approximate location of the proposed track would be there in the yellow. The track itself is I'll call it more of the long rectangular piece immediately, to the north, and then there's a small little yellow bump out area. That's the location of a new building associated with the track, and we'll take a look at that here in just a second. This is again a different orientation. We're kind of looking from west to east across the property. Immediately to the left of the track or the amusement center is the new Aldi. I want to call it Aldi all the time. Dollar General. I'm sorry. I love Aldi's. It's Dollar General, and that was built, let's just say, a couple of years ago. To the left of that, you can see that kind of that concreted parking lot, and there's a lot of trees in there. And kind of hidden in those trees is the location of the Aerial Adventure ropes course. And that was built, I don't know, let's just say 2-3 years ago as well. So those are 2 fairly new projects here in this part of the city. Immediately to the right of the subject property is a auto rental facility. I believe it's now, I don't want to say it's been abandoned, but I saw a for lease sign on the property here recently, so I think there might be some transitioning going on. Immediately south of the automobile rental facility is I think it's either 5 or 6 townhouses, and then closer, to the west or closer to the foreground, lots of trees, and there's some single-family homes in there, and we'll show some different pictures of that here shortly. Okay, this slide really shows us what the zoning is, and you can see there's a wide swath of C1 or commercial zoning along the west side of North Atlantic here in this part of the city. The piece of property that's the subject piece of property is entirely within the C1 district, so it's zoned commercial, which allows for what the code calls outdoor commercial recreation, which is things like rope courses and things like putt-putt, miniature golf, and go-kart tracks, things like that. Those are allowed in the C1 zoning district, permitted uses. And across the street in this area of the city, when I say across the street, across North Atlantic is out in the county, and that's all county commercial zoning. So we're not gonna really get into that. Now, further in the foreground, you can see there's some R-zoned property. Those are residential zoned. R3 is our most intense residential zoning district. And that allows for fairly small lots. It allows for apartments and townhouses and duplexes and single family. We have R1, R2, and R3 in the city. R3 is our most intense commercial. And then we have just to the right of that, down in the kind of the corner there, our right-hand corner is R1. That's our most restrictive residential zoning district. That really allows just for single family homes. So, and that's really all you'll see in that R1 district. Larger lots, typically bigger homes, things like that. So that's kind of the surrounding zoning and surrounding land uses. It's within the commercial corridor. It's primarily retail, and there are some, I'll call them outdoor recreation facilities in the area. So the proposal is kind of consistent with what we have out there from a land use perspective. Now we're going to have a couple of street shots. This is on North Atlantic looking west. You can see Dollar General there on the right-hand side. And you know, I know it's hard to imagine, but the track will basically be kind of aligned right behind this pole that we're looking at, right in the center of the picture. It's going to kind of be back on that part of the piece of property. Okay, I'm standing on the site back in the parking lot, and I'm looking basically to the north towards the Dollar General. And then you can see the aerial adventure back behind Dollar General. You can see some of the poles and the flags out there. That's aerial adventure. And the track basically is going to go where that, on the extreme left-hand side of the photo, you see a storage bin or a storage container with an orange stripe or reddish stripe on it. That'll be essentially where the western portion of the track, westernmost portion of the track is going to be located, and then it'll go east towards that blue tarp. So it's going to kind of be in that general area of the piece of property. Okay, basically the same location. I'm looking to the west towards the river, and this is again the western property line. And I wanted to take that picture. You can see it's pretty heavily vegetated. Lots of trees and a lot of underbrush in there. View to the south. This is looking out the existing driveway onto Holman Road, and the existing driveway will continue to be the exclusive access to the property. We all know Holman Road is a signalized intersection just to the left of the photo. You go out to Holman and take a left, and you're at the light. Let's see, that may be it. Oh, view to the north. I walked up to basically where the track is going to be located. You can see the back of Dollar General right there, and I'm looking towards right across the back, across their swale, their retention area, towards the condo project just to the north. It's north of this, and it's north of Aerial Adventure, and that's the location of that. Okay, here's a rendering of the track. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail in my presentation. I think the applicant may want to speak a little bit to this. I'll talk a little bit about it. But this is a general representation of what the track is going to look like. As I said, the track is elevated track. I think at the high point, which is kind of just north of the building, you can kind of see where the track peaks there. It's about 24 feet in height. It is, the building is shown in the foreground. The building is going to be where the carts are stored, as well as where the patrons both load and unload. I'm sure we've all been to go-kart tracks before, and we kind of know what to expect there. I think an important, well, I'll get that into when I get to my presentation part. Yeah, that's it. So let me go back to the aerial here. Yeah, let's just stop there. I'd like to, Mr. Chairman, if I can just quickly read my couple of more kind of things we have to get on the record, and then we can open it up. Again, the request is for an expansion and operation of an elevated go-kart facility. Again, it's 24.5 feet at its maximum height. A new 2,800 square foot building is going to be proposed to be as part of the project. The applicant has indicated that the carts will be equipped with electric motors that generate significantly less noise than gas-powered carts. Retention for the new impervious surface is going to be under the retention, under the track area. So that's where the retention is going to be installed to deal with stormwater. I then get into some more, I'll call it site plan minutia. It's really details that we deal with at site plan approval, but I just thought I'd kind of raise some of these issues as part of just kind of more background information. They're really not pertinent to the Community Appearance Board's purview, but it just kind of just may be of interest. Currently, the property has 78 designated parking spaces. It's interesting, the city code doesn't have line items for miniature golf or go-kart tracks. So the code says if a specific use isn't identified, then you kind of have to look at the other uses and see what most closely resembles that, which is what we did. And based on the analysis, we determined that we'd need 36 spaces, and at the post-development there'll be 38 provided. Setbacks you can see in the next table: required front 50, they're proposing to meet that. Rear is 10, they're proposing to meet that. And side yard setbacks, when a commercial piece of property is adjacent to another piece of commercial property, there is no required setback. However, here they're providing 7 feet. Landscaping is shown on sheet C101. It's one of the big sheets that I believe you have. And another important thing to kind of keep in mind on this project, as opposed to a lot of the other ones that the board looks at, perimeter landscaping is not required here on this site. Perimeter landscaping is only required when a commercial tract is adjacent to I'll call it a residentially zoned piece of property. And in this case, the parcel is bound by commercial on the north, south, east, and west side of the property. So there's no perimeter landscaping required. There is some required basically tree planting requirements for the parking lot area. But if you've been out there, you know there's some pretty significant trees out on the property. And they're going to be relocating some of the trees off of out of the area that the proposed track will be located, and they're going to relocate those onto the separate different parts of the property. Again, the staff report goes through the next section, talks about a level 1 request and the specific code requirements identified in section 2242. You know, this board's very familiar with those criteria, so I'm not sure I'm going to go through them, you know, in any great detail. But basically, the criteria are to gauge whether a proposal is consistent and not out of character with its surroundings. So, and again, I always want to point out, and not mostly for the board, but for the folks in the audience, that you know, we're not here this evening to talk about zoning and compatibility. Compatibility is the city council has already determined that a facility such as this is a permitted use in the C1 district. You know, compatibility has already been deemed to be, or this use has already been deemed to be appropriate in the C1 or allowed in the C1. So I think what we're here to do this evening is really look at these criteria and make sure the proposal is consistent with that, or with the criteria, excuse me. And I want to point out something that Jen brought to my attention this afternoon. Under the Level 1 request section on page 2 of 3, in the first paragraph, the last sentence says section 22-44 of the code. That's incorrect. It should be section 22-42. And then the same correction down at the bottom of the page, at the final sentence. Staff has reviewed the application and has determined that it is consistent with section 22-42 of City Code. So 44 is a typo. And again, I think we've gone through all of the attachments. We can just quickly run through those again. Attachment 1 is the aerial view. Number of different aerial views and street views. Attachment 2 is the actual application itself, identifying the applicant and the property owner and the property, what's being proposed. And then there's a submittal checklist that the board can review. Attachment 3 is the colored rendering that was shown here in the presentation. And also attachment 3 has a more, I'll call it a blow up of the proposed 2-story building that's being proposed. And that's all part of your packet. I believe, Mr. Chairman, I'll just read our recommendation is that staff is recommending the Community Appearance Board recommend approval of the Level 1 application for the proposed expansion as generally depicted in attachments 3 and 4 of the Golf and Gator Amusement Center at 6355 North Atlantic Avenue. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any specific questions. I know the applicant is here. If they may have a presentation to provide, I don't know, but they're here if you have any specific questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. As always, very thoughtful and insightful report. Does anyone have any questions for Dave at this moment? I mean, if not, I think we can maybe hear from the applicant, and they may be able to answer questions as well. I'm going to go ahead. Is there someone here who would like to speak on behalf? Is there? If you could please approach your podium and state your name for the record, sir.
I'm Mike Allen with Allen Engineering. I'm representing Mr. Board here for Mr. Dickey did a wonderful job explaining what the project actually is. And it will be a concrete structure. North and east. The board takes great pride in his landscaping out on site. We are impacting about 14 trees. By new palm trees when we relocate. Not be a loss of in vegetation. Current retention system is underground. It doubles what the standard is today. So we're going in and actually going to wonderful project. Added benefit to the community. Station tower, well, structure that's going in to house the go-karts. To that area. Of course, you have your golfers out to the east, but compatible with what's existing out
Thanks. I appreciate you being here tonight, Mr. Allen. Does any of the board members have a question for Mr. Allen? Yeah.
I had a question about the use of the building that's adjacent. Is that going to be enclosed, or is it an open building all the way through?
It'll be open air with the ability to close it down, garage doors, what have you. So when it's being occupied, the garage doors will be up, and cars will be running in and out, and people will have an open air facility up on the second floor to be able to observe it.
On the second floor area, are you planning to have like a party facility or something for birthday parties, or is that just going to be just strictly?
We're not even taking water and sewer to this building.
Okay, okay, yeah.
We are not planning on having
Gotcha.
facilities.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Anyone else have questions?
I do. I do. What time is this going to close? Is it the same time as the golf area, or same time?
Operating hours as well.
Okay. And a follow-up question to that is the lighting. What will it look like after closing? What kind of lighting can we expect to see or not see? Do we know that, or?
According to the board, about the same as you have now.
Okay, do we have tall light poles? Are you going to install new lighting, or is the whole track going to go dark?
Modified to
Oh,
fit the track itself. It'll be similar to what's out there now.
Okay.
LED lights, shining directly down
right.
the track itself.
Okay.
But then after operation, those lights
Okay, so similar to the golf, the mini golf, same lighting. When it goes off, the track goes off. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that issue too.
Yeah.
The city does have light standards that we enforce through our code enforcement process, and we're fairly active with that. We have a couple of regular abusers in the city that we get with on a regular basis to police and monitor that. This particular piece of property isn't one of them, I'll say that. But just so the board and the folks in the audience are aware, we will, when we're going through the site plan process, when we really start drilling down on exactly what's being proposed, we'll look at light fixtures. And we're going to make sure that they're the appropriate light fixtures that will be shielded, that are going to not be spilling light onto adjacent properties. And our code's pretty specific about that. Also noise standards. We have very specific noise standards as well. Those are things that if I were a neighbor, I would be concerned about. But I can tell you we do have code enforcement folks who are very quick to respond to neighbors. And that's generally where concerns are expressed from, are the neighbors. And I think we work pretty well with neighbors on these type issues.
May I ask about signage? Will that be different facing North Atlantic?
Signage for the golf and gators, my understanding is there's
You have any questions, Bob? No. I had a few questions, Mr. Allen. If everyone feel their question? Okay, so you mentioned the retention. Is it where on the exactly kind of it looks? So the track looks like it runs mostly east-west. Is it more towards the western extremity of the track, or more in the middle? Can you just
more towards the western portion of the track.
Okay.
We are going in and removing some of the existing impervious area underneath the track, and at that point we'll depress it and make it a retention area.
Oh, I see. So it'll be irregular. It looks like is it irregularly shaped? It looks like
It'll be a rectangular shape.
there's a rectangular shape. Okay. Sorry.
The golf course is going to stay underneath. We're not removing the golf course, so it's going to be under.
Oh, so okay. It'll be towards the western side.
It's north of the new building.
Gotcha. Okay. And the
I'm sorry, if that wasn't clear yet, we are not demoing any of the golf course holes. The track is elevated above those holes, so it'll continue to function underneath just as is.
Okay. And then thank you too for being able to maintain a number of trees and foliage. As you mentioned, there.
The board takes pride. I mean, there's full-time people out there on staff taking care of its landscaping. It takes a lot of pride in that, and we want to continue to do that.
Are there any specimen trees that are going to be impacted particularly? I know there's some nice stately oaks on that property. And
The track, not that's proposed to be removed, everything that's proposed to be removed, there are palm trees and there's one non-specimen tree that,
okay.
that we are removing, but will not replace.
So the trees that currently adorn the current parking area, including the parking islands and all that, they'll remain. Okay. Okay. Okay, so yeah, you mentioned the building won't have any mechanicals really, like HVAC or anything like that, plumbing.
It's an open air shell.
No elevator.
None is proposed at this time.
Okay. So can you describe the roll-up doors a little more in the building?
I personally can't, but Mr. DeBoer could.
Just say your name for the record, sir.
My name's Dave DeBoer.
Thank you, sir.
It'd be like a roll-up garage door, commercial stuff. Roll down.
There any, okay, so that kind of segues into a question I had with regard to the two depictions of the building here. I've got the kind of, I guess, the elevation, and then there's the kind of, I guess, kind of somewhat of an aerial view, and they look, the color of the building is a little different on each, especially the roof. Could you describe what's intended?
My existing building.
Sorry?
It'll match my existing building.
Okay, your existing clubhouse building there?
Metal roof.
Okay. And the metal doors, are they going to vary in color to the side of the building at all, or will they be consistent with the side of the building, that the concrete?
My wife has a big color for the garage.
Okay.
It'll all be one color.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm just mentioning it because I know, there's not a lot of exposure generally to the main road and all that, but you can see from the side road home in there, you'd be able to have a clear shot of the building. And are there any plans to put any kind of vegetation around the building at all? It looks kind of like sparse compared to, the current rendition looks a little sparse.
Other than the new planters that are being proposed out in the parking lot, there is no vegetation up against the building. It'll mainly be walkways and existing parking areas.
And is the area just, is a ground area immediately to the south of the building? Is that concrete or?
It'll be concrete walk to.
Concrete walk.
They'll go into the Golf and Gator shop where they'll purchase their tickets and then come back out and travel down that sidewalk on the south side of the building to get into line to run the go-karts.
Okay. Okay. And is there any building signage other than, I guess, directional? Enter here, or,
I think that'll be about it. The only signage you'll see will be on A1A.
Okay. Can you describe the utility shed? That's depicted here? Is that a new structure? Is that a new shed, or is that existing?
There are existing sheds out there. The one you see on that plan is new. It's just for maintenance equipment. Like I said, he's got full-time staff out there taking care of, his vegetation. Maybe some places store their equipment. That's where it'll be.
It'll just be like a corrugated metal shed, I guess, something like that.
Block construction.
Oh, okay.
Block construction, matching roof for the rest of the property.
Oh, good. Okay, so it'll match the intended the new building that's intended for the site. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I also had a question about the track, and I know, I guess at its highest point it's about 24 feet. I guess it's kind of more towards, at least in this rendition here, it looks like, I guess the apex, so to speak, would be. It would split the the east-west length roughly right about at the. Is that where the highest point is intended to be?
Correct. I mean, they'll travel up the spirals to get up to various levels, race across the top, and then spiral back down towards the end of the track. So yes, that highest point would be there.
So is that point at the track surface, or there doesn't seem to be a lot of rails on this track. Like, it looks like there's a curb of about a foot, which I think you probably wouldn't be sufficient. I don't know. I'm not an expert on go.
24.5 feet would be on the track level itself. Yes, there'll be some railing there.
How high are the rails?
3 feet.
Okay. What are they going to be constructed of?
Cable.
Cabling. Okay. With that, cables.
There'll be a steel bumper down at the track level that probably goes up to 16 inches.
Okay.
Back with rubber, not tires, but rubber backing
Okay.
catch the bodies.
Hopefully, it'll be minimal bodies flying into the rails. But so, are there going to be anything like festooned across those rails? Is there intended to have any kind of a signage or flags or lights or? Okay.
Yeah, our city code's pretty clear on that. There would be no signage allowed up on. Nothing can be affixed to a fence or a retaining wall or anything like that.
Right, or like a string of chevrons or something that go all the way around it, or okay. All right, thanks. I think you answered all my questions. Go over things here real quick. Any board members have any
I
additional?
do have an additional question. I see your retention pond area has like a little bridge, a walkover. Are you planning to like have alligators in there, or is that strictly water retention, that pond?
The new one underneath the track will be a dry retention area.
Oh, it's dry. Okay. Except when it's wet. But you're not planning on keeping that. Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you. It's blue. It looks like blue water on my picture. So.
Yeah. That's existing.
Oh, that's the existing one. Oh, right. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's where the gators are, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Where the bodies will end up.
Yeah.
Self-maintaining system.
Okay, and any other questions from the board members? Anyone from the audience like to speak on behalf or with respect to this applicant?
Don't we need speaker cards? I think we need speaker cards.
We're supposed to have, but
Yeah.
as long as I guess for tonight, as long as they
Turn one
give us
in.
their address and their name.
Name and address. Jen, is that okay?
Just have them stick. Can you hear me?
No. Look for the green light.
Sorry, I hit it twice. I would just have them state their name and address for the record. If we don't have the cards, we don't have the cards tonight.
That'll suffice. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
So, yes, ma'am, if you'd like to state come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Name is Lila Gilbert, owner at 291 Cape Shores Circle, Unit G. I have my concern is mainly I'm not familiar. I've only been on a go-kart once in my life. Like how many go-karts are allowed on the track at any one time? I'm sorry I don't know your hours of operation for miniature golf. One of the board members asked, is it going to be the same? What are those hours? The noise. Do you have a recording or anything of an electric go-kart? I don't know. I'm only familiar with the ones that ran at racetrack, well, the facility next to racetrack, and they were pretty loud. And the safety of a 3-foot cable fence, you know, car is going pretty fast. Something can happen.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Would you care to clarify the current operating hours, Mr. Gilbert?
The go-kart track will be the same hours as the golf course are. Regarding
What are those hours?
right now they're 10 to 10.
Do you have a recording of the electric?
Here's a recording of the car idle.
How about a maximum speed?
So like a Prius?
couple,
So like an electric car, like a Prius?
Like a whoosh?
Something like that? Like
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The engineer that's, or the construction company that's doing it, building the cars, they say that it's quieter than A1A.
Quieter than what?
Quieter than the cars going down A1A. And the only noise they make is you have 2 speakers right by the helmet, and you have sound coming out of those.
Okay.
What else was it?
Safety.
Are 3 steel cords going?
Yeah. So that's you may answer that. That's not our concern this evening.
Engineering, the state of Florida's got to approve my rail system, so.
Yeah, I imagine your risk exposure is all built into that and everything. So, yeah, I'll remind the board members that safety is more of a planning and zoning kind of an issue. In fact, if, you know, to me, if from an appearance perspective, the lowest possible cables that could work are optimal to me. I mean, really in the end.
And the maximum speed these cars are going to do is probably 20 miles an hour.
Okay, okay.
And how many can be on the track?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, wait, you know what? She did ask that.
The way this is designed, there's 30 cars total, 15 at a time go out. And while those 15 are on the track, the other 15 are back to the pits being charged. It's a self-charging system. They drive over the chargers. Nobody has to get out and plug anything in. Each run will be around 5 minutes, 4.5 minutes, while the other ones are charging. Then those 15 cars would come in, and 15 more would go out.
Yeah, I do add, I like the no emissions. I mean, it's not necessarily a community appearance thing, but sometimes if you're next to these tracks and those go-karts, they can be pretty obnoxious because they have little or no emissions on them, emissions control on them, so you won't have to deal with it here. Yeah, yeah. Any other member of the audience have an additional question? Yes, sir, if you can please state the podium. I mean, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Name first
Yeah,
and
sir.
address.
My name is Dan Typla, 261 Cape Shore Circle. So I'll just say neighbor. Just a real quick question. You said that there's an ordinance around noise. And the big question, you know, we've heard about this, we're thinking, oh gosh, you know, is there going to be a lot of noise? That's the big concern. So the question is there a quantitative measure? You know, and I understand less than 1A, but somehow there's got to be a quantitative measure that you have that's expressed in terms of decibels. So I guess the question I have is there kind of a measure, a standard that you measure that against, measured in decibels, that you would actually have some kind of enforcement around that? Because assuming that you meet that standard, then, you know, you're good.
Right. Yeah. No, we don't have a specific decibel standard. What we do have is some statements in the code, a reasonable man statement, which a lot of codes use. And it basically says, I don't have the code in front of me, but I can certainly get you the language. And you can research it if you're interested. It's on our Muni Code site. But basically what it says, and again, this isn't word for word, but there's a reasonable man standard that the sound cannot disrupt the enjoyment of a reasonable man, the enjoyment and the use of their property, adjacent properties. And that is somewhat subjective, but we deal with that. We've been using that standard for many, many years. And we have to, I'll give you a good example. We have our Friday Fest right here, and it's right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Well, there's residences around there, and we've dealt with what does that mean. I mean, if you're living right next door, it may mean something different than if you're living up at in Cape Shores or up in, you know, off North Atlantic or something. So there is some discretion that the code enforcement officers have to use, and they'll look at things such as, you know, well, they'll go out and stand at the property line is basically what happens, and they determine whether the sound is, if it's loud to disrupt the enjoyment of you as a property owner and your property, they'll deal with it at that point. So we do not, to answer your specific question, no, we do not have a specific decibel. What we do have is that standard, though.
And I was listening to the idea of the track 24 feet up, and if you think about it, you know, they put sirens for tornadoes up on a pole, right? The reason why they do that is because the sound goes a lot further. So, you know, if I'm in ground level, the sound's going to carry a certain distance. If I put it up 24 feet, that's going to multiply it significantly. So that's why I'm kind of wondering if there could be some kind of a standard, some way that you can manage that so that that doesn't become an issue.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Teipler. Appreciate it. Anyone else in the audience have comments or questions regarding this application? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Grace Kavanagh, and I live on Home Road, 321 Home Road. And I enjoy the putt-putt. It's nice, but I can hear, there I am quietly sitting on my deck reading, and I can hear the screaming and the chatter and whatever, and that's okay. I can also hear Hogan's Bar, or whatever that is, the Irish bar with the music, and even when I'm out on my dock, I can hear that. And I would say to you that noise is a cumulative thing, and it may not be huge at decibels, you know, oh my God, like roaring rock music, but it's a cumulative thing, and it comes in on us all. I also draw attention to the just traffic. I mean, we've all since Dollar Store has come in, oh my God, I had no idea so many people went there. I go there myself once in a while to get some supplies, maybe some stationery, but other people shop there, it's their grocery. So that really has changed traffic patterns a lot. It's brought an awful lot to us that we hadn't really banked on. So it's a cumulative thing. I think maybe stressing our lovely little environment, we try to save our river. We are very sanctuary-oriented community at the back there. Noise is a huge pollution, and I would ask really anything we can try to reduce to that. Granted, the cars are electric, but you cannot gag the people from screaming and shouting. And it's nice to hear people enjoy themselves. However, what about my enjoyment when I'm sitting in my house completely on myself and I have to listen to this? So I would put that forward to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kavanagh. And I will remind the board members too that, again, our focus is on appearance and whether, the application that's presented to us and the evidence and the testimony is consistent with the surroundings. Issues of use and they're obviously valid questions, and I would encourage shall this move forward, anyone interested party to continue to express any concerns they have in subsequent meetings. But the question of code enforcement issues, safety, those really aren't our primary concern. We want to make sure that, the application is going to be aesthetically appealing to the eye and harmonious to the surroundings. Any other questions, comments from the audience? Any further questions, comments from the board members? I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the application for the Golf and Gator Amusement Center at 6055 North Atlantic Avenue as presented and clarified during testimony.
I second it.
Okay, there's been a motion that's been seconded to approve the application. Any additional questions, comments from the board members? Questions, comments from the audience? Pat, yes. Can you please? Sorry. Just a question. Yeah, if you want to, you may still ask a question. Just state your name and address for the record.
Got a motion and a second on the table.
Well, so we have to put the motion aside?
It's more of a comment and a question, I guess.
Okay.
My name is Linda Birdwell Teipler. I'm married to the guy back there. Live at Cape Shores, 261. We're relatively new, 6 weeks, and we love Cape Canaveral.
Welcome.
So thank you for love your businesses, by the way. My question is, some of the neighbors had concerns. They were informed about this, and some of the other neighbors are snowbirds and they left. Is there a better, see, we tried to get online and it was locked. We weren't able to pull up tonight's agenda. We want to know, is there going to be a better way for us to know when the next meeting is? So just to make sure everything is, I mean, the noise is the big concern about for Cape Shores condominium complex.
So,
elderly folks there and they're from millimeters. So that's just my comment. Thank you.
thanks. So yeah, I mean, I get that. So that's really the question there you had was regarding, I guess, to the sunshine law and posting the meetings and agenda.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to take a little tangential trip here just for a second before we vote. Yeah, our code is very specific on notice requirements. Typically, it's done 3 ways. We post it in public places to include City Hall as well as the library. We also post it on the city website, so it's anybody who has internet access can locate it there. We also post the property. I don't know if any of you saw there's a notice out on the property identifying the date and the time and all that fun stuff of this meeting. So that's what we do for this particular board. Now, other boards that do other land use actions, site planning, rezoning, variances, there's different processes for noticing. In some situations, we actually mail out individual notices to property owners within 500 feet, not required for this particular approval type. So we have all different types of notice requirements. Just depends on the type of approval that it's being requested for. So, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you for clarifying that. And I know it's not necessarily germane to the application, but it's important for people to have a chance to understand that. So do we need to reconsider this motion, or are we ready to vote?
I mean, there's a motion and a second. If the board has any discussion, feel free to discuss it and then
I think discussion's closed. So, Patsy, please call the roll.
Sandy Lanham?
Did you say call the roll?
Oh.
I'm asking for your vote.
For a vote, yeah.
Yes, I vote yes. Approve.
Lana Whitehead?
In favor of.
Gail Sweet?
In favor?
Bob Neenstadt?
In favor?
Randy Wasserman?
4. Thank you, Patsy. So that motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for being present, and good luck with your project as it moves forward. Okay. So that takes us to the next item on our agenda here, which is the election of a chairperson and vice chairperson. We can pause a minute while the chamber's empty.
Oh, you got an email? Okay, great. Okay. Thank you for that info. I'll pass it on to our IT guy. Thank you. All right.
Okay, so on to officer elections.
Responsibilities are.
Jen, do you want to discuss that? You want me to discuss it?
I mean, as far as, are you asking procedurally for voting or just actually what or kind of all of it?
All of it.
Okay. The chairman of the board, of course, is the person who's going to run the meetings, open from beginning to the whole end, and Mr. Wasserman's done a fine job of doing so tonight as well as other nights. And when he is not here, then a vice chairman would be elected, who would then step in and fill his shoes, the chairman's shoes for the evening. So it is a matter of the chairperson running the whole go.
We can walk out the door. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
It's too late. Yeah, I think we missed
Oh, is
it.
the rocket going up right this minute?
I just heard it, so if you hear it.
If we heard it, it's gone.
Sorry.
Gotcha. No, if you.
Part of life over here on the beach.
Okay.
It hopefully won't complicate your drive home too bad.
But those are the basic, requirements. Is you're running the meetings and the one that's announcing everything, and you you need to understand the rules and procedure and basic Robert's rules type of things with handling motions and kind of getting things on track as to, as you saw tonight, how kind of needed to be reined in, you know, when, which happens on any board when it just needs to focus on the city code that has to be applied for the particular matter. So if you're comfortable doing that, that's one of the things that a chairperson has to do. And
yeah, and this is something we do every year, annually. It's, our code says the first meeting in the new year, we have to elect a new chairman and a new vice chair. And typically how it procedurally works is one of the members will say, I nominate this person. And there's a second, and it's kind of
it's
consensus.
just accept. If they accept it, great. There doesn't need to be a second.
Is the person who's currently doing it allowed to continue to do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Term limits?
No term limits for the chair and the vice chair. They can.
I should add, I think I'm towards the end of my appointment limit, but I'm not sure if there's any current applicants that are interested in joining the board.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay.
The last person we had interested, we just were getting ready to put on the P&Z board. That was the last application we had with an interest on this board, so she got snapped up.
Full disclosure, should I be nominated?
Yeah. So, but that, yeah, there's really, it's really whatever the board would like to do. So.
I nominate Randy Wasserman to continue as chairperson. Can I just pick one?
And if typically just one, and then if you have a recommendation for vice chair as well, that's fine.
And I have a recommendation for vice chair to stay Bob. Nice.
I accept the nomination.
I'd like to second it if it needs a second.
Sure, that's fine.
Doesn't? Okay.
You accept the
I'll
nomination?
accept it also.
Okay.
Unless anybody else wants it.
Okay, well, that's, I think, unanimous consent, right? We don't need to vote on that, do we?
Well, we'd still vote on it, but you at least had to be nominated. Well, if there's only, I mean, we'll go ahead and vote on it to make it very.
Sounds great. Yeah, I mean, this is our first meeting in the first meeting in the new chambers.
Out there to start.
Okay.
But so then, if there's no more,
are there any other nominations?
Are there any other nominations from anybody?
No, thank you. Okay, so there's been a nomination for Randy Wasserman, myself, to continue as chair, and Bob Neinstedt to continue as vice chair. All in favor of the nominee? All in favor? It's been seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's done. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your confidence. I thank you for your confidence.
Yeah, we're doing it.
I really appreciate it. And thank you for your continued service. I look forward to another term. Should I not be term limited by an applicant, then I think at end of May. I think is
it coming up?
I think it's at end of May for me.
Yeah, no.
What is the limit? 3 years?
Sorry.
May 1st.
Oh, May 1st. So it's 2 3-year terms.
Oh, okay.
But should there be no other member of the public interested,
I see. Then you can stay.
I may continue. Yeah.
That sounds like a plan.
Any other board business that anyone can think of?
I just have a general question about buildings in Cape Canaveral. Does the appearance board or does anybody get involved when a current building is repainted or what comes to mind is Dottie's Bar?
Yeah.
It's blue. It's been repainted, that's the good news. But is there any sort of, I don't know what you would even call it, any kind of rule that has to be followed when you go to paint an existing building?
Yes,
okay.
There is. There's a section in code that talks about the Community Appearance Board. You are the entity that's responsible for that.
Even if it's an old building?
Yes. Now, I will say this, though. The code does state that if it's a, I don't recall the exact language, but if it's a
like a like for like,
a neutral or an earth tone, or if it's not a garish, loud color, then upon submittal of paint examples to myself, and if I deem them to be not outlandish or what, I can't recall the exact language in the code, but it's you know, if it's earth tone, right, then I have the ability to approve repainting of structures.
That kind of commercial establishment has to get this.
Yes. So if you see something out there that you go, wow, Dave, you really missed a boat on that one, then typically, generally, I'd like to say that probably snuck under and we didn't even see it, because that happens. People will paint their building on a weekend
And
I think
it's,
what they were going for is they were trying to match the trim of the Mexican restaurant in front of it. If you look, I think they were trying to match the trim.
so did that happen
That's
recently?
aqua. It's like an aqua teal.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think they were trying to match the Mexican restaurants
Kind of loud.
beside it.
Did it happen recently?
I would say the last 6 weeks.
It's better than it was.
It's better than it was.
Trim colors.
It's a whole building. I was just curious.
Yeah, there is a section of code dealing with that, and you guys are the keepers of that.
Right.
Unless it's a kind of a neutral, no-brainer that I can go, but they didn't ask permission to do that particular building. We'll go. And you will. This board will probably in the last 4 years we've probably seen 2 or 3 paint requests. Not that many.
Repaintings.
Not that many.
Yeah, years ago, there wasn't any real discretion given to the city building department, and you know, we used to see applications for house repaint, you know, a fence, a chain link fence in the backyard that you can maybe see a scrap of a little portion from the road.
Just totally big brother looking, and it was just
you know. So you know, I like the development of putting some trust in the professional folks of the city.
You don't want it to be a big brother sort of thing, but I would buy it kind of to the double take.
You wonder if there's oversight.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have code enforcement go out and take a look at it, and if it really does, they do a double take, we might drop in and pay them a visit, see what's going on.
As I said, it does look better than it was.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question also. What about like derelict houses? Are we supposed to report those, or is that really none of our business?
No, I mean, maybe as a code board, or as a CAB member, probably not so much.
Right.
But as a resident, certainly. I mean, if you see things out there, my experience is when someone calls and reports it, we generally are on top of it.
You already know. Yeah.
We already know. And the problem, I won't call it a problem. The challenge our code enforcement process faces, it can be very, very lengthy to deal with some of these things.
Right.
This 2-story down here at Magnolia and Polk that's falling apart.
Oh.
It has a storm fence around it right now. It's just ghastly. We've been dealing with that guy for 2 years. And we're getting close. We think the judge might lift the stay. We were a day away from a foreclosure sale, and the guy filed bankruptcy. And it's extended it probably a year. We've been fighting this in court. Lots of money. But we're getting close. So, no, but
who do we report that to?
Code enforcement.
Code enforcement, okay.
Yeah.
Building department.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. And I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye. We could probably sit here and talk for a while because traffic out there, if it was like anything like the last launch. You guys are going that way, though. Yeah. I know Elaine is going that way.
Yeah.
Oh, do you go? Yeah, I have to go out.
I live in a very, very last building.
Of where? In where?
Did you second the motion for adjournment?
Oh, okay.
Gail. Gail did. Okay, yeah, I got that.
Gotcha. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time. So, Elena, what do you think about that new, was it Florida Supreme Court when they made that ruling on beach ownership?
It really doesn't apply to us.
It doesn't?
We've already given away our rights, pretty much.
You can give me all what
Does Bob Simons, because he presided over the last meeting?
Yeah.